Hi, in this video I will show you how to put together the Christmas tree Luminary, which is a 3D SVG from Simply Crafty SVGs. So before we put it together, I just wanted to show you a couple views. So here's one that I did in white and red. So I'm going to move it around, have a camera angle so you can see it. Then the lid comes off and you can put a tea light in there. So the weird thing about this is that this is alternate, and I'll talk about it to this. So it goes up, down, up. So it's kind of a weird fit, but it kind of pushes down. So it's not exact, but it closes it like that. So here's another version of, now the file has, I state that it's a Luminary and a gift box at once, but you can use it for decor, but the lid still does come off. I mean, you could figure out a way to connect it. Remember, we're alternating here. But you can see that would make a good addition to a village. So there's the solid version. So they're both in the file. So it's really a Luminary, but I thought, why not just do a solid version as well, because I think it would be fun to put in my village. The thing is that when it gets smaller, it's harder to put together. Just to be aware because of the size of the tabs. I used the size of the tabs for this one, which they had to be really thin because of the holes. So the solid one is just basically without the holes and solid panels. So let's move forward to put it together. So here are the pieces for the tree. I have the little panels for the tree in here, and then I have the stars in here. So I just put them aside so it'd be easy for me to get to them. And then I have, and so this is the same assembly for the solid. The only difference is these are solid sides, but it's identical. So these are all the panels that will go onto the side of the tree with all the stars and all that fun stuff. I'll put that right there for now. This, I'll explain what this is, but it's for the inside bottom piece of the tree to hide the tabs. And then we have the pieces that go together. Make sure I get the top piece. So this one goes to the top tree section. Trying to find that coordinating piece. It's underneath here somewhere. We'll just go backwards here. How many? So these are for the, oh, here we go. That's the top. These are the middle pieces, for the middle pieces. So the middle section. So the top and the middle make up the lid. And then this is for these are all for the bottom. So this is the bottom of the tree and the trunk pieces. So we're going to start with the bottom. So the one thing we want to do first is to put on, actually it'd be good to fold it, but we want to put on the panels. So you could fold it before that or after. If you have the solid one, sometimes it's easier to fold it first so you can see where you're going to center it. For this one, we have panels that match these shapes. So I'm going to go over here and get out the large panels. So there's two different panels. They are different. Let me go ahead and move this to the side. These are identical. So the way it goes on is they alternate. So you'll see that some have the star above and some have the circle. So then star, circle. So we're just going to line them up. So I'll just do two of them and then I'll do the rest of them off camera. So just be careful when you put the glue on the panels. So what I do is I just make sure that I'm matching it up. So this one has a little bit of a flaw, but I'll clean that up. When it cut, it didn't cut cleanly for this particular paper. This is my fault, but I didn't want to recut it out. So I had to make do with what I had. Let's go ahead, I'm going to clean that up real quick. So I have a little rogue piece of something in there. The paper just didn't cut cleanly. So you can also add ink to it as well. That'll always clean that up. That was a little nail file, by the way. And then again, you want to add glue carefully to the outside and in between. Just make sure you don't get through close to any of the holes. If it does go through, hopefully, you know, it'll go right through to the work surface you're working on. So I just try to carefully match them up before I set it down. Then I'll go ahead and add the other 6 and I'll be back. So while I was finishing up putting these panels on, it's the same step to put the panels on these. So you just match them up, and there's 2 different panels styles. And then the last is these top pieces. So this is just time consuming, and it just takes just a second to make sure that you get it lined up. So I usually start at the bottom, the largest openings, and then just kind of carefully match it up. And then once I got it down, get it down there. So this is not hard, it's just a little bit of the tedious crafting. Some people might find this relaxing. Sometimes this is not relaxing when I put glue like that on, because I drop the pieces with the glue on sometimes and get it on the base item I'm working on. So we're getting all that taken care of first. I dropped something. So we'll put that over here. We're going to work on the bottom piece. So we're going to take the top pieces. We're going to work on this. So what we want to do is fold it. So we want to carefully fold all the tabs. So they're rather thin, so they can't be seen when we put it together. So this is how I normally do it, especially with this thicker American Craft cardstock. And we can go ahead and fold these. Now these are going to alternate. So one's going to go kind of slightly, so one's going to be kind of have a mountain fold. One's a valley fold, mountain fold, valley fold. So we can just do them the same. So I found folding these really thin ones helps to kind of get the pressure down and then fold it up. And of course you could always use a bone folder or something like that to give it additional things. Sometimes I use, this is my little wood stylus I really like to use. It's one I had for years. I can use it for multi-purpose. Some people believe in doing the bone folders only, but for me, I don't know. I just use what's at my disposal. I don't think you need a ton of tools, just basics. I have them, of course. So I'm going to fold them naturally. A mountain fold first. Then I'm going to match this other one. So this is going to be a mountain, valley, so you can do that according to it. Now we're going to go ahead and put it together. So the way we do this, now at first it's not going to come together quite yet. Make sure these are folded too. So what we're going to do is we're going to put, do this part. Then we're going to add the trunk, and then an inside panel to hide all the tabs on the inside. And then we'll put the sides up. So just make sure the sides are folded as well. They're pre-folded to make it easier when we move on. So we're going to go ahead and add glue to this side tab. So just line this edge up to the tab fold, not over, just up to it. Make sure it's lined up in the middle as well as right here, and then go ahead and apply pressure. We'll go ahead and rotate it. So because it folds, we're just going to add, you can't really flatten it per se, but you can glue this flattened to the table. So we're just going to go ahead and put that down, and then line this piece up. So it does flatten, it's just the whole thing is not flat because of the slight shape we have in it. I'm just making sure it's not going over the fold. So that's what the inside looks like. So we're going to go ahead and put that aside for a minute. We're going to work on the trunk. So I'm just grabbing it to this over here. These are the trunk pieces, so that's the bottom of it. So we can fold it first, or we can put the optional panels. So there are some panels that go along with this, and the reason why I included them is because I like embossing. So I know some people really like pattern paper too. So when I wanted to give the option to put a pattern paper on the trunk, and for me, I wanted an embossed look, and it's kind of hard to emboss a piece that's already scored like this. So we want individual pieces. It makes it easier for me to get the embossing I want. So I just folded that. And why I folded it first is to help me, that was my dog sitting with me, shaking. Anyways, we want to make sure that we can see where the edges are so we can center the pieces. The pieces are almost the same size as the panels. So we'll put that on in a moment. So I have to stop to let my dog out. Had him locked in my room with me, but he got tired. So we have all these little pieces. This is for, obviously for this piece. And you can see how they basically have only a slight edge around them. So if you didn't want to put these on, you wouldn't have to. So that's up to you, the look you want. But I always like to give options. So I did make it a different color, even though I made this, I cut it the same color. So in your file, when you cut it, you want it the same color, you'll want to match up the color of the trunk if you want to do what I did. So I'll go ahead and put these on, and we'll just zoom through this part, and then we'll assemble it and attach it to that large base. Okay, now that we have these panels on, we can go ahead and start putting this together. Now that took probably about, let's say about 3 minutes, so it doesn't take that long to put those panels on. And make sure that that's good and scored in the right place. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to fold it down and then fold them up. So I'm going to training it backwards a little bit to get loose to glue onto the inside once we get there. So, but I mean, we will push them in. But I'm just training them while we can, and it's easier. So we're just going to go ahead and put glue on that one tab, fold it over, and match it up. It should match up fairly well, but you might have to adjust it just a bit. So there's the top piece of the trunk. And here's the bottom, so let's make sure, I want to make sure it's good and folded there. Same thing here. I'm going to train them forward and backwards so we can glue that top piece to this bottom piece after this step. So we're just going to go ahead, I'm going to fold that over, add glue to this tab. Just be careful getting glue, obviously not on the tab, because I just got it off the tab. So I always have a wet paper cloth, towel. We'll just go fold that over, it folds flat and lines up. And then it'll open up. So I just want to make sure that's good and secure before we move on to the next step here. So we're going to glue this on top of that. So you see that? So what's nice is we leave this bottom piece open so we can, I'm just making sure those fold too, so we can reach in. So I like to anchor them. So I'm going to anchor 2 pieces. So I'm going to start with this one. I'm going to do these 2. So we're going to fit one first. So I folded that one down a little bit. So I'm going to fold that in there. See, I'm lining this edge up. So we're going to be doing a lot of this with this particular, the rest of this assembly. This is easier because I have larger tabs. It's going to get a little bit harder when we have the tree pieces because the tabs are much smaller. So this one you don't have to do as much time, but we're just making sure that that bottom edge right here matches up to the fold. What I like to do at this point after it's attached is do a couple of the other sides. So you could do them all at once if you wanted to. So you could add glue all at once to all of them or reach in after the fact. So I'm just doing kind of ones opposite to it so I can get it in place, and then I'll add glue to the remaining tabs. So it kind of puts it in place for us. So we have a couple more tabs to glue, so you'll see these. I'm just going to pull them backwards. So I did 4 of them, so I just have 4 more, so I'm just going to add glue to the 4 remaining pieces. So you kind of have to fold them back like that. And then we'll just fold them up in place. Again, these are pretty large tabs compared to what we'll do on the tree. It's going to give you a feel for how we put the 2 levels together, the top and middle level. That's really I would say that's one of the harder parts. So get you ready with the little test gluing. So they all glue on the inside. So you might want to just do one final, just reach in, go around. Okay, you don't want to put the bottom piece on yet because that'll allow us to get in there for the next couple steps here. So this is the inside. That's the outside. So now we're going to do a similar thing where we're going to glue this to the inside. See if all the tabs are in there. I might have to rotate it a little bit, but you get the gist. So I'm going to do this, I'm going to anchor it to one side. So we're going to put glue on one of these tabs, and I'm going to fold it inwards to glue to the, see, like that. And I'll just start on this side with a tab. So I'm reaching underneath. I'm also pushing it in so this edge right here goes into the fold. So I want to double check, see how clean it is underneath there. And you really want to get it good and stuck before you do any more. So again, you could do 2 on each side, and we'll just do that. Just be careful not to get the glue too close to the actual edge here, so you don't want it leaking to the bottom. You won't really see it that much, but it's just a good practice to get into. So again, making sure that that edge lines up, and we're in the section that we need to be. So it's a little flimsy. Make sure all those tabs are inside before we go any further, so they're all sticking inside. And I'm going to do the opposite side. So I'm just going to add glue to these 2 tabs. I probably wouldn't resize this down much further than it is. I mean, if you're going to, I don't know how clean, depends on your machine, how clean these holes will cut. Could have made them larger, but also it is some of the areas, because I had to make the tabs smaller, are harder, but I wanted this to be more of a display piece or a gift box, obviously. So then we'll go ahead and glue the rest of them. So the last 4 will add glue. And why I tell you about the resizing is that a lot of people resize it down. You could play around, and what I would do is just take one of the smaller pieces, like one of the pieces for the middle, and see how far you can resize it down where your machine will cut the holes out. If you're going to do Luminary, you could resize it down a little bit. I did a 75% size tree with solid panels, which I showed at 75%. It was a little bit harder to put together because the tabs are much smaller, but it came together. Personally, that's the size I would go down to, but that's me. So you want to make sure those are all secure. So now we have this. This is what it looks like at the bottom. So with this piece, this is what's going to happen is these 2 pieces and this middle piece. These are purely to cover. I'm just kind of folding them. It's purely to cover this bottom part, because when you open it, you don't want the person to see all that. So it's really not like ultra secure, but so it's going to be the opposite again. So I'm going to do the same thing where I do a valley fold in a second, and then I'm just accordioning it. So there's little scores here to fold this, but you really don't need to fold it, but I kind of needed to have those just so you can see where this middle piece will go once we get it in there. So the same thing, I'm just going to fold them naturally, and then I'm going to do a valley, mountain, valley. So what that's going to do is it's going to go in here like this. So you can put it in right here, but what you have to be careful of is making sure it matches, the folds match where they need to. So if you want to, so it's really a light, it doesn't go all the way to the edge. but you can lightly put it in here. So we're just going to go do that. You can put glue on everything up to the score line. So there's a little score line there on these little tabs. So you don't want to put too much glue, and again, we want to just fit it in there. That's just for aesthetics. So I'm going to see where it's match it up. I know where the folds are. It doesn't really matter whether it goes over each section. But what I'm doing, oops, don't do that. Kind of lightly placing it and folding it. So it still folds a little bit. Because we don't, when we do the sides, it's going to fold up. I could have done individual panels, but I chose not to. So you just want to go through and get it attached. Again, you could actually put 2 of the sides or 4 of the sides up on one side and then place it, but you want to be able to reach in there. So I put the other side on lightly, making sure that it basically covers the middle. These shouldn't go all the way to the edge, so you need to make sure that they all fold in when you put it in, so you don't have any bulging. If for some reason you move it in a little bit, you could always trim it a little bit. But you want to make sure those are all clear so they'll fold up. And then we have just this middle piece to put in. So I'm just going to add a little glue to the bottom of this. I mean, you can go around the edge, really. It's just the middle that shows. I did a little bit too much, so the glue is going to be in the middle. So I'm just line it up, and all we're doing again is just covering it. But because it's bent a little bit, we had to. We can't just attach it to the middle. So what I'm doing is, you can see the tabs in there. I'm just pushing them up to make sure it adheres. And again, this is just for looks and to give it a solid bottom so you don't see that hole. So you'll want to take a second to make sure that that's all secure. So now that you made sure that all the tabs are connected to that little middle piece to make it solid in the inside, we can go ahead and add this bottom piece. So that's why we're not putting the sides up yet, so it makes it easier for us to, we don't want to push down on it, but it just gets it easier for us to do this part of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just putting glue on one tab. I'm going to line one of these edges up to the tab. No, you're not seeing it. I will angle it. But I just lined it up. I'm very right-handed, so we're just getting that attached and making sure that edge lines up to the tab fold. So once we get it anchored, we can go ahead and you don't want to push them in too far because we want this lid to adhere, so you kind of want a little bit of a resistance. What we're going to do is put glue on them, and then we're just going to line it up. So I just put glue on all of them at once. The fine tip applicators or any kind of tip that you have help because you can get really close to the edge with the glue. It depends on your glue. You kind of have to know how long it dries. So put enough on there so it doesn't dry before you fold it over. With time, that becomes easier. because you get used to the glue you're using. So like the art glitter glue, it stays wet for a little while before, but you can see if it starts drying out a little bit. So what I do is just fold it over and start lining it up closest to the tab that I have attached. Go around the edges. I'm not pushing down really hard too. If it seems like I'm pushing down, I'm not. Some days it's easier than other days. So you want to get it lined up, and once you get it lined up well enough, you can go ahead and apply pressure like that. If it's not perfect, don't worry about it. Like I said, some days it goes on perfect, some days it doesn't. And it could be about how you anchored that first piece. So I'm just rubbing against the table. You see I was a little bit off. That's not a huge deal. As you can tell from the side, that's what it looks like. So now we're going to go ahead and start gluing the sides together. So that's where it's important that these are good and folded, your tabs on the side. So we're just going to do a couple, and then I'll let you watch me finish the rest without a whole lot of speaking here. So I'm going to add glue lightly to that tab. And we're going to go ahead and start folding it. So I would try to line it up. So you want to line it up and then start from the bottom going up. So you should be able to reach in there to get it in the right place. So we're lining up this edge to the tab fold. And then the nice part is you can kind of flip it over. And I know you can't really see, but I'm applying pressure on the tab that way. So you're going to rotate it and do this with all of them. So I'll do another one. So it's just to get it in place. You see I kind of start at the bottom and then go to the top. Just getting that excess glue off. Making sure it's lined up. That's what running my finger over that helps. Then flipping it sideways. Be careful pushing in the wrong places, but I'm basically reaching in to apply more pressure against the table. So you'll be able to do that with every single side. So I'll go ahead and finish it. You can continue to watch if you like, if you need to see it a couple more times. And then we'll move on to the next step. So now it does get a little bit harder at the end. So I just want to get it in place because it'll get tighter right here, especially if you do a smaller version of it. Then I'm going to go ahead and get it in place. And that's when it becomes important to go ahead and use that pressure against the table. Then we have this last section, and this is where a fine tip applicator can come in handy. You can reach in too. I'm just going to reach in between here. Then I'm going to reach in, and since I have the shortest, so there's a long side and a short side, I just happened to end up on the short side, which was beneficial because you can reach in better with your fingers, especially if you don't have long fingers like I do. Like I do not, I should say. So I'm just getting it in place, and then that one's careful, just kind of angling it so it's only putting pressure on that one tab. And there it is. So that's going to be the bottom, so whether you use it as a gift box, to give it as a gift box, or both actually, you could give this as a gift box with a tea light in it, or you're just going to use it for your own purposes at home. There's the bottom part. So we'll go ahead and put that aside. Now we have the top piece. Pieces, I should say. So they're going to go together similarly. We're going to do the top piece first, and we need these longer ones go with the middle, and the shorter ones. So we only have the top and the star to add at the very end. So I already folded these. So again, we have this really thin tab on the side and these tabs on the bottom. And this is going to be the bottom edge. So it's going to be this edge right here. That's the other piece. So we'll go ahead and fold this. Just make sure I would just do a normal fold like that. And it's going to kind of go up and down again, but not much. As you can see, goes up and down like that bottom piece. So we just want to make sure that it's pliable at that location, at the actual scores. So what's going to happen is it's going to go like this. Glue like this, go around, and then this will glue to this second section. So we're just fold those back, fold them up, just to train them. So I'm just getting that good and ready. So I'm just folding them because I'm not quite sure how it's going to go on yet. This one, when you fold it, what's kind of nice is that you can kind of fold it. It's not hard to fold. So you just be careful and make sure you fold all the way to the top. So we'll go ahead and put this together. So this is just really simple, just one tab. But you want to make sure it's good and scored here. Over at the top. Line it up. Of course I drop it. This is where something like a blunt tool comes in handy, like a chopstick, like a take out wooden chopstick. I want some pressure from inside against that tab. But also once you get it in place, you can just go flat. So you can do that in the first place. I just wanted to get it lined up. So that's a nice part. You still can flatten it. So we'll do that. We'll have that ready, and we'll just get this one ready as well. So these are all folded already. So we'll line up. I'm lining this edge up to the tab fold. Just making sure this is nice and then we can go ahead and just fold it over. So we could have done that for the top piece. I don't know why it just showed you a hard way to do it. I've put this together several times now, but even I need to be reminded. Whenever I do some of my old items, people send me emails and say, well, how does this go together? This part I'm having trouble, and I have to go watch the video because I don't remember everything. After hundreds of assemblies, I've changed the way I do things over time. So that's ready to put together. So let's go ahead and put this on first. So now we have these pieces, and you see we have these all trying to get ready because they're gonna fold down and glue to that middle piece. Okay, so I just have the gonna go ahead and glue this little side tab, so it's that little crooked side tab. I'm lining up this edge. You don't want to go right up to it, you just want to give it just a little bit to the left of the fold. That little bit of room is going to make a difference putting this on. So line it up so that edge, this edge, lines up to the tab fold, but slightly to the left of it. So now we want the textured side, if you have textured paper, to be facing downwards because we want to be able to see that. So I'm folding these in a little bit more. You can see they go up and down. Let's find the seam. I'm going to start at a seam. I think I'm going to go on and up. Okay, you see how I just folded that like this? I'm going to go ahead and add glue to these tabs. So I'm taking the one that comes down, and then that one goes up. So I'm doing the down right now. If this is pliable, it doesn't really matter, but I kind of made the mountain fold here. And I'm going to match this up. I'm going to carefully match it up so it's, this is really precise. So we get that. So we have that tab attached, and then I'm just going to do this second tab. And you can see, hopefully, I'm trying to make sure that we're matching up the folds on this right up to the gaps on the top part. If it's not perfect, honestly, you're not going to really see it. So those are the two. So we can continue going around like this and gluing them. I like to do 2 at a time, and I'm really careful about, the reason why I do 2 at a time is this reason. I'll show you. It gives me time to adjust it. If I do 1 at a time, sometimes it can get that those folds can not line up very well on this piece. So if I do 2 at a time, I kind of get it lined up on one, and then the other really quick. So I'm not doing a lot of pressure, I'm just getting it into place. And then I'm making sure that that next fold meets in the right place. And then once I feel like it's in the right place, I just apply pressure. Now if you're really advanced and you want to try it all at once and just go around, that's fine. I try to usually do my assemblies to people that are, I was taught when I did training videos way back in the way, or training documentation, that unfortunately you have to train for those that are the least experienced. Not unfortunately, it's a good idea, because you never know, like even though I do a lot of this, if I see a video for like a 3D item like this, it could be just a tip in there that I didn't know about because I was doing it one way the whole time. I don't know if anybody learns anything from me. I mean, it'd be great if you did, but I realize I'm not the first to do this and I won't be the last. Not the best teacher, but I do enjoy showing people how to do things. So here I'm just making sure as I do the last 4 that they kind of all line up. If there's a little bulging here and there, it's not bad. You can see it's lining up into place. Then I can just go around, put pressure against the tabs to finish it off. So we're going to do the same process on the bottom edge of the middle piece. And if you need to add a little glue to the edges, you can. Depends on the look you want. But that's what it looks like. So the way this is going to go on, so this is very important. We want see how it goes up here and then down here? We want this piece to go down while this goes up, so they alternate. So make sure that whichever side you start on, if this piece is going like this, comes up a little bit, make sure you have a down piece on the top. Hope that makes sense. So you don't want it to be like that, it won't fit. It's the down piece. So let's get this. So this is probably the hardest part because the tabs have to be so small. I could have gone down with this. I wanted as many holes as possible in this piece for the luminary. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to add glue to one tab. Actually 2 tabs. Just flick those in. So you can see I have the down going here. So this down, that's up. So I'm reaching in. Kind of moving it around to get this in place for the second piece. So that's, if you can see the tabs inside. And I'm trying to push this in at the same time I'm pushing this down so I can get this edge in line with the tab fold. I'll show you the inside in a minute. But this is the most important part. You see the tabs right there? You have to make sure you put enough pressure to get them secure. So you can do that. Getting the first 2 and just try not to push too hard on the other pieces. It's all hollow. Now I'm going to carefully make sure that all these tabs on the other side are inside, like that. So hopefully you can see that. Then we'll do the other side to get it anchored in place. If one tab works for you, one tab works for you, but it's just for me easier to do 2 at a time. So get it in the right position too, because you want to make sure that it's not awkward for you based on whether you're right or left-handed. So I get a little pressure on it, and then I'm kind of pushing up to make sure that that edge meets the fold up there. Like I said, this, in my opinion, this is probably the hardest part of the whole thing because the tabs are so small. If the tabs went down to here, wouldn't be a problem. And I didn't make the change for the solid one because it's kind of a bonus for the file. So you can see it's in there, but you want to make sure that they're good and secure before you move on. And you can see it just barely clears the openings, the circle and the star at the top. So I went as far, I made them as big as I could without sacrificing on the cutouts I wanted. So this is the same exact procedure for the solid one as I mentioned earlier. Even with small tabs and all. I mean, if you wanted to, and you were very versed, you could always make the tabs a little bit bigger by just adding like little squares to it. Like with the Cricut, you would use something like, you'd have to be a little bit more advanced to do it. Cricut's a little bit harder to edit in, where like Shortcuts a lot and applications like Shortcuts a lot. And Silhouette Studio, like the advanced version, like Designer Edition above, have more options for designing. I probably wouldn't, like, people ask me personally, but I'm just not a fan of Design Space software. Good machine, but software, in my opinion, lacks. But it's really good if you that's all you want to do is cut something. But I don't think it's very friendly for external files that much, although it cuts well. I designed to make sure it works in Design Space as it's the most popularly used, but it's the one that has the software has the most difficulty, unfortunately. So all the tabs, I just make sure they're all secure. So we have the top, and the only last thing we need to do is add that bottom portion. So the same thing, I'll get this folded and then I'll start it, and then I'll resume to finish it up with you after I get this started. Okay, so we're going to just do the same thing. And then the last thing to do is to add the star. Just piece it together. So again, the most important thing with these pieces is to get it in the right place. I do 2 at once so I can make sure they line up. And I'm being really careful, I'm not pushing down on this, I'm just kind of letting it sit on the table. It's a bit fragile. Then we'll continue to go around here. So just be patient. I'm just trying to get as much glue closer to the edge because I don't want that gap. So I hope you enjoy the finished product. If you did like this project, I always appreciate a little thumbs up on the video, and or subscribe if you haven't already. You can see I have a little bit of a gap there. So that's the nice thing about having fine tip applicator. I'm just kind of squeezing it in there. And I could have done it a different way, but I just squeezed it in there to get the glue. I didn't get it all the way to the edge there. So I wanted to do something a little bit more traditional. I did a tree a long time ago, but as time goes on, I learn new techniques, so I like to incorporate them, or at least try to stretch, to try to challenge myself a little bit. A lot of it for me is, a lot of it's of course the artistic side, which I have my own style, but also it's really a technical piece a lot of the times for me as well. So if it gets off just a little bit, like the fold right here, you can kind of adjust it by kind of pulling it tighter or loosening it, or letting it kind of loosen a little bit. So it's not a big deal as long as it fits on there. It's really a visual portion of the design. I mean, it pulls it together, but it's really a visual portion, and it's the thing that'll help it sit on the bottom part. Then I'm going to just go around, make sure that it's all secure enough for what I want. So the reason why we didn't put the star on, obviously, because I have my hands here a lot, and that star is in itself kind of fragile. So you don't want to put it on until the very last. So before we put the star on, remember I said that these alternate. So the same thing is true when you put this top piece on. So if it goes up, the little down part should be showing. If it's down at the bottom, it should be up here. So, and it only really fits, I mean it does fit, and this pushes in, by the way. So don't be alarmed because of the shape of it. If you put anything like a void in there, it's going to go like that, but that's okay. It's meant to do that. Excuse me. Let me just make sure here. So it kind of fits kind of weird. I did it, I mean it is on purpose. I mean this is fitting the way I intended to. But it just sits on top like that. So that, down, up, down. And you see that it gets closer as you angle that way. So it just sits like that. And you can go ahead and use it. You could just put a, we're just going to put one of these in for now. I know the lighting's not, you're not going to be able to see it that well. So there we go. And here's one, I don't know if you can see the glow, but for this one, you can see it from above. I put fairy lights in it. So it really makes it glow. So at night, you get a really good glow. So now we're going to go ahead and put this top piece. So this is the same color as the tree. And there's two sides and they're going to go back to back. So we're going to zoom in so you can see it better. There's a little, there's cut, I have actually cut lines in here. So you can score it. Now I didn't want it to be an actual score, I wanted it to be cut lines. So you fold that. So I just fold it gently, just slightly. Then we're going to go back to back. So we're going to go ahead and just line them up. This is supposed to give you a little bit more strength. So I'm just going to glue just put a dab of glue in there for the neck for a little bit security. So I really went and glued it up to the cut lines that you can see, because it's very, when it gets put on, it's not extremely strong. So if you wanted to put another piece, you could always put a third piece and cut it off here, but anyways, it's not extremely strong. And then we're going to go ahead and on each side glue a gold star. And if you just wanted this for like the solid version, you wanted just a tree, of course you don't have to put this piece on. Everything's optional. In fact, if you wanted to make the tree solid, I'm sure you could just figure out a way to attach that bottom to the top piece by a couple little strips, and then you'd have just a decoration piece without being able to open it, obviously. But there's always ways to change something. Cut the glue a little bit too far. You don't want to get the glue below the star section. So once we get this out, we'll go ahead and put it on the tree. So you can see the little green on the side, but it really doesn't distract from finished product. So now, just looking at this, we're just going to pull this apart just gently. I'm just kind of holding it at the neck. I'm going to add a little glue on each side. In there. Add a little glue on my fingertips. I'm going to try to determine which part I like the front. So I've decided on the white one, I did it going up. I put the star like that at the up piece. I'm going to go at the down piece for this one. So I'm making sure that this, I'll flip it over in a minute, that this folded piece right there lines up to a fold on the other side as well. I don't want it really sticking out, so you can see it attaches like that. So now I'm going to pick the front, and there it is. So I have the star situated like that. I know I have a little tea light in there, but going sideways not great. So once again, this is the Christmas tree luminary, and you can make a solid version if you like as well. I'll show you that again. I hope you like the project. The lid comes off, obviously, so there's a little solid version of it. And then I'll show you the red one more time. So this one I put the star facing, so this point was down. Trying to keep the angle, and I have some fairy lights in there. So far I like the fairy lights better, and you could just lift it and turn it on and off. So I hope you liked this project. If you did, again, give me a little thumbs up, and I thank you so much for watching.